The Athens Hocking Recycling Center will no longer be accepting film plastics for recycling. Film plastics are thin plastics such as grocery bags or plastic wrap. Even if you put them out on the curb with your recyclables and they're accidentally taken away, they will eventually be sorted out and thrown in a landfill. TGC recently spoke to Bruce Underwood of AHRC about the issue.
So we're a little bit different because most material recovery facilities do not accept them to start with. We designed our facility with those in mind because we've had a buyer for the past 4 years. So when we built the facility, we designed in a process to help get them out early. And that's still what's going on, although we just don't have a downstream recycler. We don't have a buyer for them.
With no one to buy film plastic from AHRC, the center has nothing left to do with them except throw them away. Underwood says that a lot of the problem with film plastics and why no one wants to buy them is because of how easily they become contaminated and are difficult to work with.
For plastic in particular, when you're melting that down and you have to put this hot plastic in molds, there's all this equipment involved that's engineered. And you think about materials like glass and food waste and bits of paper and other things like that, really makes that process difficult or damages the equipment.
If you're concerned about wasting film plastics, Underwood says that the best thing you can do is to avoid them as best as you can.
Use reusable bags when you go to the grocery store. Or if you go to the grocery store, which happens to me a lot, and I forget my reusable bags, ask for paper. You know, a lot of places still use paper, which is easily recyclable.
Underwood also says that if you're struggling to avoid film plastics, to try and return them to their source. Some places that use plastic grocery bags will accept them back for recycling. He also says that if you do try to recycle them at the curb, you'll likely get a so-called OOPS card.
We've utilized the OOPS cards. Some people may have received those on the recycling cart. So when someone contaminates the recycling with trash or other materials that we don't want in there, you know, we leave them reminders. We get code enforcement involved to have those conversations around what's supposed to go in there and what's not supposed to go in there. So, you know, we're going to work with folks on that. We're going to give them education and we're going to reach out when they're doing it wrong to get them to do it right.
In addition to film plastics, there are a few other items that are difficult for the recycling center to take.
You know, if you think of a cardboard box, it's just cardboard for the most part. But if you start talking about things like gable-top cartons, aseptic packaging, which would be like shelf-stable vegetable broth containers, you know, little kids' juice boxes. Those are cardboard and plastic and aluminum all sandwiched together. So you can see the difficulty in recycling those things. So those are things that inevitably end up in our mixed stream that we don't necessarily want because it's hard for the downstream recyclers to process the materials into something else usable.
With all of the negativity around what people can no longer recycle, Underwood says that it's important to remember the bigger picture.
What I like to try to do is try to stick to what we want and try to keep it as simple as possible. You know, when we talk about film plastics, it's a very small contribution overall compared to what we do and what we process. So I like to keep that big picture in mind that, you know, it's a very, very small amount of the 11 million pounds a year that we recycle, that we process here at the plant.
With only about 40 tons of the nearly 5,800 tons of recycling in recent years being film plastics at the AHRC, it's important to remember that continuing to recycle is a major benefit to us and our environment. So help out Athens Hocking Recycling by sorting out your grocery bags from your normal recycling so that they can continue their work in the recycling industry.
So through this transition process with film plastics, there's going to be a time period where we're going to try to get the education and push out there that we don't want these film plastic materials in the mixed recycling. If someone puts that material in there, it's going to be a cost to us, and it is going to get landfilled. It's not going to get recycled. So I want to make that clear that if you put that in there, it's a detriment to our organization for our processing, but also it's a cost to us, and it is going to the landfill.